Hello and welcome everyone to the news analysis for 28th of January 2025. So in today's news analysis, guys, we are going to talk about India-Indonesia relations. We are going to talk about India-China relations. So two topics of international relations, as you can see on your screen now. Then government's lateral entry scheme. It is going to face some legal roadblock in the Supreme Court because it has been challenged in the court now that lateral entry is subverting the provisions of reservation. Is it working fine now, everybody? जो पहले वाली स्ट्रीम है ना, इन्होंने दो स्ट्रीम क्रिएट कर दी है गलती से. तो जो सॉरी फॉर सम टेक्निकल ग्लिच दैट हैपेंड इन द फर्स्ट क्लास. Some stream key issue had happened, some wrong stream key got selected. Okay, so now we are going to begin with the news analysis. In today's news analysis, we are going to talk about number one, India-China relations in the light of our foreign secretary visiting China. Number two, we are going to talk about India-Indonesia relations in the light of Indonesian president visiting India on the eve of 26th January 2025, the Republic Day of India. Third, we are going to talk about this topic, lateral entry. This is going to be our first topic though. So this topic, why lateral entry, even though it is good that lateral entry is getting delayed, as we know that in the present notification of UPSC also, the number of vacancies has come down around 900, right? Had it been for, if it were the lateral entry, if the lateral entry scheme would have gotten executed in the right earnest, the number of vacancies would have come down even more. Okay, so now what is the judicial roadblock to judicial blockade in a way, or judicial issue in the way of lateral entry? It is being said that lateral entry is going to block, is going to subvert the reservation provisions in the Indian Constitution. Government hasn't taken care of the reservation while notifying the this thing, right? The lateral entry part, lateral entry scheme for up to from the joint secretary level onwards. Okay, so these things we are going to study now. From Sukarno to Prabowo Subianto, the present incumbent president of Indonesia, Myanmar angle that we are going to study today. Supreme Court criticizes high courts and trial courts for not granting bail in the cases which merit bail. So this is going to be another news issue for the day. Let me just share it once on the Telegram channel so that now people can watch it live. I hope it is working fine now. This thing, right? Yeah, it's going fine now. If anybody faces any issue, uh, do let us know in the comment section itself. Let's begin, guys. Good morning, everybody. Now, editorial, I have incorporated this editorial on Niti Aayog's fiscal health index, in which states like Punjab, West Bengal, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh have performed very poorly in terms of their fiscal health, and states like Gujarat, Odisha, Goa, they are performing fairly well because of their good fiscal health in this Niti Aayog's fiscal health index. We have also incorporated some RBI's viewpoint, etc., as to what needs to be done in order to bring back the situation of states deteriorating finances at the states level to their normal or to their subnormal level at least. Now let's begin. The government's lateral entry scheme to invite talent into the civil services at the higher echelons of the government is going to face a roadblock, or is already stuck, I would say. Why? Because one Indian Forest Service officer, Sanjeev Chaturvedi, he had filed a plea in the CAT, Central Administrative Tribunal. Okay, so for contractual hiring of secretaries, this CAT, Central Administrative Tribunal, can be the bench you can appeal to. Now, Sanjeev Chaturvedi sir has filed a plea, that lateral entry scheme is subverting the provisions of the constitution insofar as reservation provisions are concerned. Because in the regular scheme of notification of vacancies through UPSC, reservation is provided for. But when you are notifying the vacancies for lateral entry, you have somewhere forgotten UPSC or Government of India, DOPT did not notify the provisions for reservation. Okay, now this has put a question mark on the future of the scheme. 63 appointments have been put on hold. They have been made under it since the inception of the scheme in 2019. Okay, but there is a shadow of judicial doubt now on these vacancies also. Okay, now what is going to happen? What has happened so far? How has the case come to the Supreme Court? The plea was originally filed in CAT bench of Uttarakhand. Okay, Central Administrative Tribunals. These administrative tribunals are created, let me give you a background, to resolve the employee grievances, the grievances of the central government employees. These CAT tribunals are constituted. Now, one of the central government or All India Service employees, Sanjeev Chaturvedi, has reached out to CAT bench. Bench started hearing the petition, but government of Delhi, I mean the union government, central government, DOPT, Department of Personnel and Training, wanted the case to be transferred to New Delhi, right? But the officer here resisted. He said that why the case would be filed. So Uttarakhand High Court, he filed a petition in the Uttarakhand High Court that this case should not be transferred to New Delhi. Okay, so what happened is in 2021, CAT Delhi bench put the case on hold pending the High Court's decision. So this is going on like a to and fro between Uttarakhand High Court and CAT Delhi. So this was going on. Finally, the central government filed a petition that this case needs to be heard in the Supreme Court because of the important questions of law involved in it. Okay. Now, Uttarakhand High Court ruled against transferring the case to Delhi. The centre then approached Supreme Court, where a 2-judge bench in February 2022 put a stay on the High Court order. Supreme Court referred the case in March 2023 to a larger bench as the issue affects a large number of employees and is of public importance. Why is it of public importance? Because a lot of people belonging to SC, ST and OBC communities are also going to be affected. Okay, and since a large number of employees who are already in the central services and all India services, their chances of promotion are also going to be affected. Okay, so the matter started from CAT bench and it reached out to Uttarakhand High Court. And then it reached out to, then the matter was, the Delhi government, union government took it to CAT bench of Delhi. They said that it is administratively convenient for the government of Delhi, the central government, to, if the case is heard in the Central Administrative Tribunal bench of Delhi. But the petitioner, Sanjeev Chaturvedi, he said that this case should be heard in CAT bench of Unnao only, right, where he had originally filed the case. So this is how it is going on between the two sides. Now, what are the questions involved? We should be equally interested, or we should be more interested in the questions involved in this case, right? Basically the questions are, basically the questions here are whether can you subvert the constitutional provisions. Okay, here it is not mentioned, I was just going through. Let me tell you whether the constitutional provisions granting reservation to certain sections of society can be subverted, can be sidelined just because of the reason that a lateral entry scheme has come. Now, government has clarified that Article 309 versus Article 310 kind of a dispute is there. Article 309 says, here you can see, Article 309 says that such schemes like lateral entry have to be or can be brought about only with an act of the parliament. You getting my point? if the large number of vacancies have to be filled up, then as per the constitutional provisions governing recruitment to civil services, governing UPSC, such type of schemes have to be brought about through an act of the parliament or a well drafted scheme, that is like lateral entry scheme. Okay, statutory rule has to be there under the All India Services Act, or the rule needs to be promulgated by the President of India, right? This is what Article 309 says. Now, what is Article 310 saying? DOPT says that doctrine of pleasure, as per the doctrine of pleasure, the President of India can appoint anybody he thinks fit. Anybody the President thinks fit will, President can appoint somebody. Okay, so this doctrine, pleasure doctrine, is similar to the pleasure doctrine in so the kind of doctrine as it prevails in the appointment of ministers. Okay, pleasure doctrine, the same as the President can apply when he thinks that the government is not serving the purpose. He can even remove the ministers, right? Ministers serve in the government till the pleasure of the President. But here the question is, can the scheme for mass employment be brought under the pleasure doctrine? You getting my point? Pleasure doctrine was for certain cases, for 1 or 2 appointments, 3 appointments. Let me tell you a very interesting case. Gyani Zail Singh was the President of India. Okay, it's a funny story, but you will remember pleasure doctrine forever in your life, because it is it was such a funny story. Here, the daughter of Gyani Zail Singh fell in love with the gardener of President's Gardens. You know, Mughal Garden, etc., right? So, President Gyani Zail Singh's daughter fell in love with a gardener, and it was a kind of ironical situation. The situation was such that President's own daughter is in a love affair, but with a gardener of the President's bungalow. Now, what to do? That person, under the pleasure doctrine, was appointed as an IAS officer. Because it was an old era, judiciary was not as empowered as it is today, and Rajiv Gandhi was also trying to wash his sins of allowing the Delhi riots, etc., etc., right? You know that history. Delhi riots had happened. So Gyani Zail Singh's son-in-law, who was a gardener, overnight he was made an IAS officer. Pleasure doctrine, right? Because if the President's daughter is marrying the gardener, then, I mean, heavens will fall on the India's civilization, whatever you can say, okay, civic culture or these things. So that is why, to save the President's image, this was done. But can you have so many sons-in-law? Understand the emotions behind it. Can you have so many secretaries of the government? IAS officers are called the sons-in-law of the government, right? So the perks, the benefits, the bungalows, the perquisites that they get. So now here, can you have so many lateral entrants without having a well thought out, well approved scheme, without approving the scheme through the Act of Parliament? Okay, now this is the roadblock that faces the lateral entry scheme. Even though 63, 64, people have already been appointed to the secretary, joint secretary and above level, but this is the problem, right? So because of this, this scheme is lingering on. Conflict of interest. Now, why? Now, let's get into the merits of the scheme. Arguments in favor, arguments against. Arguments in favor, arguments against. First of all, you see this phrase, very popular these days, right? Madhabi Bhuj. Madhabi Bhuj, conflict of interest, a person who is otherwise very proven name in the private sector. She's having multiple degrees. There is no doubt about her professional capability, but ethical capability is in doubt. She and her husband has invested from the offshore funds in Adani's companies, right? So if we have such kind of people, now in today's newspaper, a clipping has come. Please try to understand. A clipping news issue has come that people of integrity are being searched now, that Madhabi Bhuj is going to retire next month, is going to demit office. Government has not renewed her term of office. Even though we see in RBI and other, government institutions, regulatory bodies, Shaktikanta Das's position was, he was renewed, his term was renewed for twice over, right? But now in this case, no renewal of term. We know that government is known for its rigidity of stand, and government is not going to budge despite criticism. But if such people are going to enter, let's say if tomorrow former CEO of Pepsi comes and is appointed as the water secretary, now what she or he will do to the water resource ministry? Because their interest lies in serving the private interest of the private industrialists. Okay, no doubt about it that we need specialists like Madhavi Buch, but their integrity, ethical ability, ethical aptitude needs to be tested. Being good in the industrial sector, being good, capable, or much more eligible than what is required in the civil services is a good thing. But if they are lacking in their ethical accountability, ethical integrity, they are going to be of disservice to the country, right? We all know these moral things. Okay, by the way, what is your stand? Are you in favor of this, or the lateral entry, do you think that we need? See, I'll give you certain examples I had incorporated. Many specialists have done a great service to country. Homi Bhabha, India's nuclear research program. Then the same field, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Then we see Indian Council for Agricultural Research, MS Swaminathan, right? So these people, they came from their respective service background, their respective career background, and they brought about things like Green Revolution. Then Varghese Kurian, right? Amul, the milk revolution that India saw. Then then we talk about Dr. Manmohan Singh, economic reforms, LPG reforms. He was having a background in economics, right? So we need specialists in the form of lateral entrants, but the positions like having sectoral heads is fine, but if you are going to flood the system with lateral entrants, it's not only about we the civil services aspirants, what will happen to us, it's about the country. Because a person who has got his training as a district collector, then he rose up to the level of secretary to the state government, then finally he climbed up to the level of secretary or joint secretary to the government of India. That person's field work experience, ground level experience, is going to be of huge service while making policies like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri, so many yojanas are there, okay, LPG scheme, etc., Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana, so many things, right? So that person's experience is required. If we have a system where in USA the secretaries to the President of India are their specialists, are the field specialists from their respective fields, that kind of a system, for having that kind of a system, India has a long way to go, maybe 10-20 years. But we need specialists like examples I gave you from Homi Bhabha till Sam Pitroda, IT revolution of India. The IT revolution that we talk about today, okay, it is because of the Sam Pitroda's brainchild. We need people in railways from the railways background, Indian Railway Engineering Service, etc. But having the people from the private sector industry come and sit over as CEOs of the government machinery or secretaries to the government of India, then the permanent civil services, the very reason for which the permanent civil services was created, would get eroded, right? And these people would only be serving the interests of private people. Okay, so this was the brief analysis. No, after learning about Gyani Dayal Singh's daughter, you should think of other ways of getting into civil services. You should not be disheartened about it. There are shortcuts to success. Now, I am not saying you should rather apply for gardener to the president's office because this president does not have any daughter. No, I did not check the background data. It's just on a lighter note. Focus on your studies. Now, lack of field experience, profit-driven motives, instances of failure, just go through them, right? Even the domain experts at times have failed miserably. Example, the case of Air India. Okay, it was headed by a specialist before being acquired by Tatas. Still, government could not revive the fortunes of Air India. So many failure instances are there. Let me tell you an interesting thing about Singapore Civil Services. Singapore Civil Services Reforms Commission it said that the chances of failure of the people in civil services as an IAS officer or Singapore service officer, the people have failed miserably many a times. That is why while applying for the civil services test over there, exam over there, a candidate, if he or she has been meritorious all through his life, very good academic career or something, okay, that person is not rendered eligible in the civil services. Why? Because that person would get disheartened if he or she is selected to the civil services. Why? Because the chances of failure of government policy are very high. And we see many toppers also, they end up quitting the civil services, don't they? Many toppers, meritorious candidates rank 1, 2, 3 because they can't handle the pressure. They can't handle the tag of a failed civil servant sometimes. So that is why they quit after certain years of service. But we need in civil services people of impeccable integrity. The lateral entrants who will be coming here with the momentary or temporary interest of 4 to 5 years term may not look for their career progression like a civil servant who thinks of 30 years career ladder. That is why he would not do anything corrupt that might render his chances of getting promoted being thrown to winds or something like that, being risked. He would not want to risk his career for, let's say, maybe 50 crores, 100 crores. Why? Because he knows that there is a career in front of him. These people who come with momentary interest, 5 years, 4 years, might damage the institution like SEBI. These days, SEBI is more like, in Hindi, if I may use the word, sabhi ki, है ना? Sabhi ki nahi hui SEBI. SEBI's main role was to protect the common investors. But now what is happening? The elite investors' interest is being taken care of. Now, so this is there. Coming to this thing, India, China to resume direct flights, issue visas. Now, why is this happening? Why the change of heart when it comes to China? Do you think something has happened globally that China is changing its stance towards India? Earlier, the kind of hotness we've seen in our ties, okay, the SAR treatment being meted out to India, then land boundary issue, Galwan Valley, etc., Pangong Tso Lake, China has encroached upon our area, right? Some media leaks are coming sometimes. So why now China, after 3 months of negotiations, military standoff has come to an end or near end? Why this is happening? Donald Trump. Okay, the madman theory behind Donald Trump. Now they know that BRICS countries, the other day's news analysis, we saw that BRICS countries are going to face a lot of tariffs from USA. Okay, I'm reminded of Dr. Manmohan Singh's statement that there is enough space in this world for both the countries to grow together, for India and China to grow together. Now there was another statement, 21st century is going to be Asian century if these two countries cooperate with each other. If India and China are cooperating with each other, are going to cooperate with each other, no one can stop us from converting this 21st century into the Asian century. This is what Dr. Manmohan Singh had said during his tenure as the Prime Minister. Okay, so he said that rather than having mutual competition on irritants like line of actual control, minor irritants, we should look at the larger picture of conquering the world. Right? That is what he had said as a lesson for both the countries to learn. Now, because of the USA's overtures, USA's signals, Donald Trump signals that the road is not going to be as smooth for these two countries. They are going to face rough patch of road till another 4 years, maybe Donald Trump's term. So that is why this development on the global platform, the Donald Trump's second term as the president, has brought the two neighboring countries closer together, it seems. Though we'll have to see how, as a follow-up to this meeting, things will pan out. What has been agreed to in this meeting? Number one, resume dialogue on trans-border rivers. We all know that at Yarlung Sangpo, which is known Brahmaputra, which is how Brahmaputra is known over there in China. China has been constructing reservoir dams, right? These reservoir dams are going to deprive India of India's share of water downstream. Assam, then West Bengal. So river flow downstream as an upper riparian state. If China stops, if China is building reservoir dams, these dams will take 4 or 5 years to fill up. After that, the water will go downstream. China, India. That is why what is happening now, China has China was withholding the data from us. Now China has agreed that they will share the yearly format of data every year as they used to do it earlier. The hydrological data as to how much has been the flow of water, how much has been stopped by China, and how much has been allowed to go downstream. When China used to freely allow the water to go downstream, then we used to request China to at least hold some water to a level that the lower states, the lower riparian states of India are not flooded. Every year we see floods in Assam. Okay, the wildlife sanctuaries, etc. One-horned rhinoceros, they get submerged, they get killed because of floods. Now we are requesting China to not to store so much of water, as this is going to deprive Indian states downstream of their much needed water needs. Okay, so this is there. India-China expert level mechanism. What is the name of the mechanism? India-China expert level mechanism would discuss the resumption of provision of hydrological data. Hydrological data will be shared on a regular basis. Now, making 75th year of establishment of ties with a number of celebratory events this year. Is this a guarantee? Is this meeting between the foreign secretary and the Chinese counterpart a guarantee that these things will follow? We have seen during the first tenure of Prime Minister Modi that even when Chinese president was there in our country, Prime Minister was giving the gala treatment to him and his wife. There were our soldiers fighting the Chinese soldiers because of Chinese aggression around the Pangong Tso, around the Galwan Valley at that time, Pangong Tso Lake area, right? So it is not a guarantee that these things will be followed upon. This is what China has always done. Okay. Now let's see. Let's hope that these things, as we see on the paper, as we see on the slide, will pan out as they are being taught here at the ground level in reality also. Facilitate people to people exchanges, including media and think tank interactions. For example, Niti Aayog of India would have kind of discussions or research on the matters of concern to both India and China. Okay. Now, they both have agreed to end mutual suspicion and estrangement. The atmosphere of mutual suspicion that China might do this, China might do that, that kind of mutual suspicion needs to be eliminated to give way to peace and bonhomie, trust, mutual respect from both the sides. Now, discussions over the concern on trade. India and China, they have been levying restrictions on each other's trade, investment, flow of goods for quite a long time now. Now that, again, that needs to give way to dialogue and some agreements. India did not sign regional comprehensive economic partnership primarily because of the concerns around India being flooded with Chinese goods. Already we have a trade deficit with China which is around $100 billion, right? So we need to bridge that, which is it's exceeding 70-80 billion dollars now, 60 billion towards China. So that kind of a thing needs to be addressed from both the sides. India should allow Chinese investments. China has also said that raids on telecom companies, denial of business visas to Chinese businessmen who want to visit India, and then need for a level playing field over India's decision in 2020 to require home ministry clearance. China was investing in certain sensitive areas like telecom, cyberspace, AI, etc., which India doesn't want to open for China because of the territorial dispute. China might use these to their advantage, Chinese people, right? So Chinese government is known for having interference in Huawei. Okay, it is said that Chinese president has been calling the shots, has been deciding the policies of Huawei, etc., the cyber company, the leading tech giant of China, which might invest in India to hijack India's telecom software server. These days, even dams are being powered with cyber technology, right? Internet of Things. So those kind of things might land up in China's control, which China may use to its advantage. We even talk about AI vehicles, the AI chip in the vehicles, the IC chip or the semiconductors being used in the vehicles, the smart vehicles these days, if they are manufactured in China, can be remote controlled by China in case of a war between India and China. That is why we created a process during the COVID time that any investment proposal coming into India from any Chinese company needs to be first approved by India's Union Home Ministry. Then only that proposal would be allowed. And no Chinese investment is allowed to take place in the northeastern states of India, especially Arunachal Pradesh, for which, because China has been issuing stapled visas for the people of Arunachal Pradesh, claiming that Arunachal Pradesh is their territory, Chinese territory, which sooner or later China would recover from India. So these type of activities, first from Chinese side and then reciprocated from India's side, led to a lot of mutual suspicion and an atmosphere of animosity. That is why now they have agreed that this type of atmosphere, the negative atmosphere, should give way to positive atmosphere, because we have to work in each other's, we have to work in our respective national interest, as USA is doing. And if we are not going to cooperate with each other, maybe the third party, the Western world again, will take advantage of it. Maybe these are just the preliminary talks. One foreign secretary level discussion cannot whitewash everything, right? We have been having the brawls on the border since 2013-14, okay, and this has been continuing. Then we saw Doklam Plateau crisis in between India, Bhutan and China. So it's like a phase in the history which has become a history in itself, history of animosity. Will this give way to positivity? Needs to be seen. It marks the resumption of foreign secretary, vice foreign minister level bilateral dialogue mechanism. Okay, it follows the meetings between, why has this positive development come now? Meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping in October. Meeting between foreign ministers, defense ministers and special representatives. Now when at the political level the first meeting happened, then there was a series of meetings between defense minister, finance minister, and finally it comes down to official level foreign secretary. This is how the trajectory of relationship happens. First the political policy makers, they decide whether they want to take the relationship forward or not. Then the rest of the things happen. Okay, now coming to another important news issue relating to environment, GS mains paper 3. What is happening here? If you are aware of this site, South Lonak Glacier, the melting of this glacier at a rapid pace thanks to climate change. Okay, this glacier melted 400 meters. Okay, from 2008 to 2019, which led to this glacial lake. Let me draw it here. Okay, let us say this is a mountain range. Okay, there was a glacial lake between these two mountain ranges. Because of the melting of this South Lonak Glacier, SLG, water was getting trapped in this lake. Okay, glacial melting, because of the glacial water melting, ice melting, this lake was getting filled up. On this lake, we created a hydropower project. We created a dam. Now, because of the ecological sensitive region, the ecological sensitivity of this overall area, the capacity of this rock basin to hold the water was up to a certain limit. But if the glaciers are melting at a faster rate and water is getting entrapped and entrapped and entrapped beyond the capacity of this rock basin to hold the water, one day this is likely to collapse. And when this happened in October 2024, September 2024, it brought a havoc for the people living in this area. Okay, so glacial lake outburst flood it is called. When the glacial lake, which was filling up the water until now, when one of its wall broke down, okay, it led to a gush of water flowing downstream, bringing havoc for the people. Glacial lake outburst flood. Am I making sense to all of you? Is it clear? Okay, now as the South Lonak Glacier continued to retreat amid the global warming by 400 meters between 2008-2019, lakes only grew larger and larger in size. Okay, so now what are we doing? After the mayhem has gone, people would have forgotten. In Sikkim, now where this tragedy happened, we are planning to construct this lake based hydel power plant all over again. Right now, an expert committee was appointed by the Environment Ministry, which has now recommended that Teesta 3 dam, this dam was constructed on Teesta 3. Okay, so you need to study this. South Lonak Glacier feeds how many rivers? South Lonak Glacier feeds how many rivers? Teesta 3 is being fed by it, one of the rivers. Okay, now the state's biggest hydropower project needs to be reconstructed, which was washed away after the glacial lake outburst flood in Sikkim in 2004. Okay, this was one of the biggest tragedies of the year 2024, not 2004, 2024. Okay, 2024, this tragedy happened. Now, recommendations of the panel: increase in the strength. Now, what they are saying is, instead of the older structure that broke down, this structure, it was part rock and part cement, part concrete, partly artificial, partly natural. Now the natural side of the wall broke down. If this was the glacier, okay, one part was constructed with concrete, RCT, etc., and one was natural. Now when the break happened, the outburst happened, this side, the natural one, broke down. Now they are saying we are not going to take risk. Both the sides of this dam will be reconstructed, and now both the sides will be concrete made. They will be artificially made, applying the due civil engineering behind it, so that this type of a tragedy does not happen. Is it a guarantee? No. Okay. Now, concrete, the new dam will be entirely concrete. This is what they are saying. Capacity, they are saying the spillway of dam will be capable of managing a peak flow of around 20,000 cubic meters, thrice the capacity of the former dam. The capacity of previous dam was 66 to 6,700 cubic meters. Now they are saying the capacity will be around 19,946 cubic meters, thrice the capacity. So spillway means if in case there is a gush of water because of, let's say, cloudburst, if the cloudburst happens as it happened in Kerala, right? So if the same kind of tragedy happens, anything happens, if the glacier keeps on melting at a faster pace, the capacity of dam to hold the water will be 3 times now. So this kind of a tragedy would be entrapped. Rather, they are saying that this dam will avert any such kind of future tragedy because of cloudburst or because of excessive melting of the glacier. South Lonak Glacier. Okay, so they are saying in a way these dams, if built in the right manner, can avoid such kind of natural tragedies, cloudbursts or anything. Acha, answer in the comment section why cloudbursts happen. What is the natural phenomena aside of the discussion that we are having? Why cloudbursts happen in the first place? Please answer. Okay, just give me a minute. So these things are there. Now, the new design incorporated a worst case scenario, meaning the maximum possible rain in the upstream glacial lake has been accounted for. It has been so modeled around the Indian meteorological data of taking into account the most excessive years of rain in the last 100 years, okay, or next 100 years. Why? South Lonak region, whatever models IMD has got, or on the basis of climate change data published by various international agencies, United Nations Framework Convention, whatever, right? So all that data, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, if they have predicted that this glacier will melt at certain percentage, all that thing has been taken into account. So that now, that is why the capacity of dam has been increased to 3 times. Got it? Now, what are the glacial lake outburst floods? How can they happen? Okay, sudden water release, rapid duration, river discharges. So please read them yourself. These are things which are of static nature. I said why the cloudburst happens. So here we have incorporated the information about how these glacial lake outburst floods bring about a havoc for the people living downstream. Okay, and what can be the scenario which can lead to it? One of the reasons could be cloudburst. Another reason is the gradual melting of the glacier. Okay, now this thing is there. Causes of glacial lake outburst flood, trigger factors could be rapid glacier melting, heavy rainfall, inflow of melt water, changes in the glacier volume, lake water levels. If the water level in the lake is rising and rising, this puts more pressure on the side wall. Okay, so we can even dig it up. If we are digging it too much, we are in a way making this wall weaker, right? Either ways, this is ecologically sensitive area. These things should be done very, very cautiously. Now, from Sukarno to Prabowo Subianto, India and Indonesia evolution of ties. Recently, as the president of Indonesia was on a visit to India, both the sides, Indonesia and India, signed a number of agreements: maritime security, then culture and digital cooperation, traditional medicine, security, health, and there is one other element, that is Buddhism, that binds these two countries. Okay, now here, established strategic partnership. Both the countries had established strategic partnership in the year 2005. Later on, this was elevated to comprehensive strategic partnership. Indonesia is a part of India's Act East Asia policy. See, we haven't signed that kind of an agreement with ASEAN all of a sudden. India adopted during Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's era, when Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, we adopted individual country approach. India and Indonesia signed an agreement. Then India, South Korea signed an agreement. Then other members of ASEAN, with other members of ASEAN, we negotiated FTAs. And Indonesia, as it is a part of ASEAN, so we signed an agreement with Indonesia also. Later on, further deepened it from 2005 onwards. We incorporated these changes, positive changes, to make the strategic partnership to comprehensive strategic partnership. Okay, this comprehensive strategic partnership does not have only the economic angle to it, the trade and commerce angle to it, but overall freedom of navigation, maritime security, okay, then rescue of the vessels if they are stuck in the Somalian pirates territory, like-minded activities. Whatever activities affect India, if they are affecting Indonesia also, so those activities will be bridged together. Okay, so these things are there. Now, defense cooperation, joint military exercises, Garuda Shakti, Samudra Shakti, and coordinated patrols, CORPAT. Garuda Shakti, Samudra Shakti are the names of the exercises conducted between India and Indonesia, right? So names of these exercises are important because Indonesian president has been on a visit to India as the Republic Day chief guest. That itself is the reason for the questions to be asked around this territory. UPSC has in the past asked the questions around arranging the capital cities of these countries, Southeast Asian countries, in the order of, in the descending order or ascending order from north to south. These type of questions have been asked. Okay, now since directly or indirectly Indonesia is also embroiled in the South China Sea dispute with India, with China. Okay, so why China is yielding now? As we saw in the previous clipping, that joint mechanisms between India and China have been restored, bilateral relations will be restored back to their normalcy. Why those things are happening? Because of the multi-pronged pressure being put on China by India. Recently, 9-nation exercise, Law Peru's exercise. led by France, hosted by France, but involving countries like Canada, USA, Australia, Japan, all these countries clubbing up, including India, Indonesia also. Okay, all these countries, navies joining hands together to test the IORIS platform. Even though the pretext on the face of it, it was to test the IORIS platform. Okay, for coordinated communication between naval vessels of all these navies of all these countries, and even the aircrafts and the sonars, etc. But ultimate target was China. Then we are collaborating with Singapore also, Strait of Malacca. Then we are a part of Quad also, right? So all these factors combined together somewhere put pressure on China. Now, coming back to Indonesia, that is why China has come back to the negotiation table, at least. Otherwise, China was not budging. Or maybe our foreign secretary went there, whatever is happening in the backdoor diplomacy. But try and understand that we are using every country, big or small, to our advantage insofar as mending China's ways are concerned, insofar as teaching a lesson to China is concerned. Now, joint military exercises, defense industry collaboration. The inaugural India-Indonesia Defense Industry Exhibition in 2024 showcased opportunities for cooperation. Indonesia is India's second largest trading partner in ASEAN. Please understand the importance. As I was telling you, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh followed a very well calibrated strategy to strengthen the ties with ASEAN partners. If we were to sign, had we thought of signing a wholesale agreement with ASEAN, all the countries of ASEAN in one go, South Korea, everybody, Myanmar included, hai na? That would have failed. Like the regional comprehensive economic partnership has failed. Why? Because the wholesale agreement doesn't suit India's approach, doesn't suit India's agriculture. Maybe our agricultural concerns with regard to some countries of ASEAN would hold us back from signing a full-fledged one-go agreement, free trade agreement with all the ASEAN countries. So we followed what approach? A la carte approach. Rather than going for the buffet approach, in which the entire ASEAN countries FTA would have to be signed in one go, in 1 year, right? That approach doesn't suit us. We followed what we need. We will handpick the items and then we will execute them into free trade agreement, then gradually comprehensive economic cooperation agreement. Now see the extent of trade. Bilateral trade 29.4 billion. Indian businesses have invested over $1.56 billion in Indonesia. I'll tell you, the relationship hasn't been as rosy as it seems looking at the relationship now. From the time when Indonesia was siding with China, during 1962 war between India and China. Indonesia did not say even a word in the favor of India. Okay, then we go further backwards. You see here this Nehru time, NAM summit era, we have ties with Indonesia ever since the NAM summit era, right? 1945 to 1949. Nehru was among the foremost global statesmen in support of Indonesian independence during their national revolution. Okay, so this is their decade of cordiality. 1951, India signed the Treaty of Friendship, which aimed at perpetual peace and unalterable friendship. Now, this happened. Just go through this background yourself. Now, let me take you to the contemporary angle. Indonesia is, I would say, is the only country which is putting in so much of effort to restore peace and stability in Myanmar. Why is India why is India giving so much of importance to Indonesia at this stage? Why now? This is the problem. This is the reason here. Myanmar, an otherwise good ally of Indonesia, thanks to the Buddhism ties, historic ties between the two countries, military junta was there from 2021 onwards. After a brief while of democracy, when Aung San Suu Kyi was made the premier of democratically elected leader of Myanmar. 2017 to 2021, democracy was there. Before that also, military junta was there in Myanmar. Okay, so with this military junta, Indonesian governments of various years have maintained good ties with Myanmar. It is this muscle, it is this soft diplomacy that can be of India's usage, that can be of India's advantage. Myanmar, being a rogue state, non-democratic state, ruled by military, has been siding with China. And you know that the route as it passes through India's northeastern region, 𝐂𝐇𝐀 dispute. I had made one YouTube short also on that. It has been titled wrong. I mean, the caption given is wrong. 𝐂𝐇𝐀 dispute, these people in the Manipur, they require arms and ammunitions. Okay, otherwise, entire northeastern region, insurgency affected region of India, gets the arms and ammunitions from Myanmar. To restore peace and stability in Myanmar, we need countries like Indonesia, which have Indonesia has proposed a peace plan for Indonesia 2021-2022. Recently, on 3rd of December 2024 also, Indonesia came up with the peace plan for Myanmar. Okay, so it has enough muscle to flex in Myanmar so that Myanmar does not go the Chinese way. Myanmar does not fall in China's lap. Okay, so that is why Indonesian president's visit to India holds significance insofar as strategic relations between ASEAN and India are concerned overall. Insofar as freedom of navigation in South China Sea is concerned, we know about these straits. The Sunda Strait between Java and Sumatra Islands is an alternative route to Strait of Malacca. So we are making our presence on Sunda Strait also, and then Lombok Strait also. Okay, so these two straits are also of significance to India. Now moving further to the next topic quickly. Pardon me guys. Supreme Court criticizes high courts and trial courts in granting bail. One of the high courts, in a matter where one Muslim person had converted mentally unfit child into Islam, and he'd sent him to madrasa. A young boy who was mentally lunatic, who was not in fit of his mental health, was converted into Islam by another Muslim person. That Muslim person was now subject to incarceration, subject to jail. He was sent to prison. Now, when this case went to the trial court could have given bail. But trial court did not give the bail, instead led him to, allowed him to, stay in jail. In a way, allowed police authorities to keep him in jail for a long period of time where bail could have been given. Then the person filed the petition in the High Court. High Court also rejected his bail plea. Matter finally came to Supreme Court. Supreme Court reprimanded the High Court as well as the trial court as to why are you not granting bail in the cases which are eligible for bail. How do you know about it, Ganesh? Okay, so now Supreme Court criticizes reluctance of high courts and trial courts in granting bail. What are the provisions? I told you the brief story. In the matters which are not of rape, murder, dacoity, extortion, right? Or where the person's, danger or person's, the threat that if a person is released on bail might tamper with the proof or evidence, where these threats are negligible, in all such cases, bail should be granted. Bail should be the norm, and keeping in prison such type of person should not be ordinarily resorted to by the courts, be it trial court or the high court. Now, these are the sections. Section 483 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the new bill, or section 439 of CRPC. Okay, better to remember these new set of sections rather than the old ones. Now, prison scenario and electronic monitoring. NCRB says that Indian prisons are already overpopulated with a significant overpopulation of 131.4%. That means for any jail where the capacity is 100, 131.4 people are living average, on an average. Okay, so that being the scenario, don't you think that for petty crimes, bail should be the norm, right? Note down another section, section 436A CRPC. Section 436A CRPC says where a person has been languishing in jail as under trial. He is not yet been convicted. Under trial is somebody whose case is pending, whose case is being heard, but because of lack of number of judges, because of prolonged hearing and the proving of charges takes a lot of time in India. Because of that, the person keeps on languishing in the jail as under trial, right? He is still under trial, as the term says. Those people who have served half their term, for example, if in a case the person was supposed to serve in jail, was supposed to be in jail for 3 years, but he already spent 18 months plus period, 1.5 years in jail, 50% of the term he is already served, that person should be allowed to be released on bail. Okay, in such cases where the term is under 3 years, people are released on bail, filing of bail bonds, 20,000 rupees, 30,000 rupees, or a surety bond. What do we mean by surety bond? Surety bond is if one person is arrested, the other person is giving, person 2 is giving his surety that he won't commit the same crime again. Okay, just because some people do not have a surety person, someone who can take their surety, they have to languish in jail. They remain in jail because nobody comes to pay for them. They don't have to pay for bail bonds of 20,000 or 30,000 rupees. Number two, they don't have somebody to file surety on their behalf. Okay, like if you are arrested by police, SHO wants you to call your brother or your sister. Okay, anybody who's your guardian, that this person has committed this crime, you give me the guarantee that he won't commit this crime. Your brother says, no, he is a habitual offender, I don't know, he will do the same thing again. Then the SHO, the police person, won't allow you to leave. Got this? Now, some people do not have their guardians or their supporters, who are called sureties in the legal term. That is why they keep on languishing in jail as under trial. Supreme Court said Section 436A of CRPC should be resorted to by the jail superintendents, by police authorities on days like Gandhi Jayanti, on days like National Prison Day or Satyagraha Day when Gandhi ji was released, etc. etc. Such days are celebrated, seeing the conduct of the person and seeing that he is already served half the term of his sentence. If he is not proven guilty, then also he served half the sentence just because of the tardy judicial machinery. So then that person should be allowed to go under section 436A, merely because he is poor, merely because he is a lone guy, he does not have anyone, should not hold him into the prison. Got it? So this thing is there. Now, incarceration. In the US, what is the culture? They drop a Google pin. Such people who have committed petty crimes, they are allowed to go. They share their, like we share WhatsApp location, they share their Google location, and a band is tied on their wrist. Like this band, a band is tied on their wrist which carries their geolocation every time. Okay, or they are asked to drop a Google pin of their real-time location. They are not supposed to leave town, they are not supposed to leave the city area where they are told if to stay until their case is concluded. So now the advantage of this e-carceration is, incarceration is in the prison, e-carceration is e-carceration is you are not in the prison but you are in the e-prison. In a way, you are in your house, you are at your job, you are allowed to go, you are allowed to walk freely, but in the demarcated area only. Police people will come to keep a check on you. In the US, for this e-carceration, provisions have been in use for quite an extensive time now, for quite a length of time now, and these are being used in an extensive manner. Now the question is, with the advent of E-startup, Zomato delivery, everything we are using internet. Can't we use this e-carceration instead of keeping people in prisons? Can't we geo-track them? Right? So this type of technology could be used for petty crimes, right? Now the last one on Niti Aayog's Fiscal Health Index. Quickly, we have already covered this news article on the news under the news analysis of 19th or 20th January. Please check it out once. The debt deficit dynamics of state governments have worsened during the pandemic. We've already covered it, so that is why I'm being a little fast. Their debt to GDP ratio had, for instance, increased from 25.3% in 2019 to 31% in 2021. That means if the states are earning 100 rupees, right, 31% is the debt. Okay, if they were to pay all their debt in one go, 31% will be consumed in retirement of or in paying off the old debt. This is not the EMI thing we are talking about. EMI burden is 6%, 3%. Okay, every year gross state development product of the state 6 to 7% is going in EMI payment. But if they were to retire, if they were to repay their loan all in one go, in one shot, it will take 31% of the resources. In case of overall all the 28 states of India. This situation is, earlier it was 23, 24%. Because of COVID, it came to this situation that they had to borrow more. Because in COVID, there was no business activity, no VAT, no GST revenue. That is why tax collections plummeted, tax collections went down, but the expenditure, payment of salaries of government employees, etc., remained at the same level. When the income of the state government went down, but expenses remained the same, what will happen? Governments will have to borrow debt, loan. State governments borrowed loan from central government, from RBI, from World Bank, and from other Asian Development Bank, etc., for making for meeting their regular expenditure, the revenue expenditure. That is why this situation has happened. Now, this situation is captured in the Niti's Fiscal Health Index carved out for all the states. Right? Now, as per the RBI's most recent state finances report, states managed to bring down their debt to GDP ratio to 28.5%. States have managed to bring down, okay, but the situation is still not as good. Right? Now, variation across states. However, there is a considerable variation across regions. For example, Odisha and Gujarat have their debt to GDP ratio as low as 16.3%. Odisha's overall debt, overall loan as a percentage of its overall GDP per annum, 1 year's GDP is 16.3%. That means of the Odisha's 1 year GSDP, gross state development product, only 16.3%, if paid, will retire all the debt of Odisha as a state. It is 17.9% in case of Gujarat, which is a good thing. But compare this to Punjab, 46%. That means if Punjab were to pay whole of its debt, complete debt, if it wants to be debt free, like we say, each hair strand is in debt. A person's बाल बाल कर्जे में है ना? This is what we say in Hindi. Each of his hair strand is into debt. Now, if the Punjab wants to get rid of its complete debt, it will have to pay around 46%, 46.6% of its total state income of a year to get rid of the debt. Now, what are the parameters used? Fiscal prudence, debt index and sustainability, revenue mobilization, and quality of spending. This can be asked in prelims. Okay. The report has created fiscal health framework using these 4 pointers. Fiscal prudence, how they are managing their revenue expenditure and revenue income. This allows for not only assessing the performance of the states across various indicators, but also identifying areas of improvement. Where do they need to improve? Do they need to improve their quality of spending? They should spend more on fixed assets, capital assets, or they should work on the payment of the debt, the loans that they have borrowed, the states have borrowed in the past. Okay. Now, reference to a quick reference to Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act would not be out of place. FRBM Act says that states have to gradually bring down their fiscal deficit and revenue deficit in a gliding path. What is the gliding path? Gliding path is the path in which an aircraft comes down. Aircraft takes the landing. And what is sliding path? What is, rocket path? Rocket path is quickly coming down. Can we bring down the fiscal deficit and revenue deficit quickly, like a rocket path or hockey stick or something? No. Why? Because that will lead to poor people being withdrawn. Poor people would be withdrawn from all the support. They will not get any kind of breather support in their income, in their National Food Security Act, state-run government schemes. So that is why it is important to follow a gradual yet steady path to bring down the fiscal position back to normal. Okay. Now, what is the takeaway from this? Last line is important. RBI study was conducted. Similar RBI study was conducted, fiscal health index kind of a study. Loss-making power distribution companies. Since states are giving subsidy on electricity, that is why public distribution power distribution companies of the states were unbundled. Unbundled into 1, 2, 3. Power generation company, transmission company and distribution company. This electricity reform was carried out, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana, etc., etc. Since Manmohan Singh's era, we have been trying to resolve this problem. States give free electricity to farmers, which in turn leads to losses for states, and these losses are then reflecting on the adverse debt situation of the states. Okay, second, growing inclination for freebies. Now we are in the culture of freebies. Arvind Kejriwal is leading the fray. Delhi government, everything will be free, right? Even liquor, right? So, I mean, the taverns policy, the scam that they have committed, barring that, everything is free. Realization of guarantees, among others, are areas of concern. This is so especially for the more indebted states. For instance, Niti Aayog report says that states like West Bengal and Punjab have seen increasing debt to GDP ratios, raising serious concerns about debt sustainability, whether they would be able to sustain their debt even. Okay, so these things are there in today's news analysis. Now, it would be advisable to draw up a detailed roadmap for bringing down the debt in a time-bound manner. So, what is the need? We need a new FRBM Act as per the new Finance Commission report. Okay, new FRBM Act is needed. The old era FRBM Act, suggested by FRBM panel headed by N.K. Singh, is of the pre-COVID era. Now the realities have changed drastically after COVID, so we need a revamped FRBM Act legislation for the whole country, because the combined debt of center and the states is around 80%. 80% of the GDP of India will be required for 1 year to pay the whole of the loan of central government and state governments combined. Isn't this situation precarious? This will lead to rating downgrade for India and lack of new investment in the form of FIIs, FDI coming into India. That is why we need to see a holistic picture. Fiscal health index gives us the mirror image of it. Now, these are the questions for today. You can download the PDF from the Telegram channel, Jatin Verma sir, PW only IAS. You will get it. Yes, these articles are enough, Govind. Okay, so these are the answers for 27 January. So thank you for today, guys. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.